What's this? Marvel fans ruined Zack Snyder's Justice League? Not exactly. No. This is Cosmic Book News. Matt McCloin has quite a few battles with Marvel fans. He doesn't hate Marvel. He's actually said good things about some of the films. And especially with Nova. Should have had Nova weaved in by now. Should have been back with Guardians of the Galaxy. He could have had introduced the character. And almost did, but James Gunn didn't want another human character in it or something like that. I forget. It's too bad. That would have been a nice thing to do. And since they went with Captain Marvel, they should have weaved her in as far back as that to introduce her better instead of having her shoehorned in. But I don't think they knew who Captain Marvel was back then. Yeah, I know. Feige knows the Marvel Universe. Yeah, well, okay. So anyway, this is an article in response to some Twitter comments from Jay Oliva, who worked on Justice League with Zack Snyder. He's a storyboard artist, and he's directed some animated movies for DC and all that stuff. And he's been a good defender of the Snyder Cut, which, yes, hashtag release the Snyder Cut. And to people saying it didn't exist, which was absurd. Of course, it existed. It was just a matter of how much of it and in what form and all that. But to say it didn't exist was just laughable. But nevertheless, these people held to it, like, we never went to the moon, I don't know. And Jay Oliva said, no, there is. And he knew about it. And you don't know what you're talking about. He was there, so this sort of thing happens. Anyway, he puts the blame on social media influencing Warner Brothers executives to a point, and that they're constantly looking at it, and this is part of their decision making. You can certainly see that influence in Hollywood overall, and despite reality, they continue to go to like the Ghostbusters 2016 template. That you can, in that case, feminism, so that you can call everybody a misogynist if they don't like the movie, on and on and on, to this very day with Terminator Dark Fate. And now Terminator was probably a doomed film. Let's say they didn't do that. The problem with Terminator is the problem with all the Terminator sequels, with the exception of Salvation, I guess. That was just a bad movie. But the rest of them, they just keep copying the same storyline. And that was its problem. But nevertheless, they advertise it with, misogynists are going to hate this film. So if you don't see the film, you're a misogynist. So, that's not going to work. But that's the type of attitude, if you're entrenched and, deep into the Twitterverse, you'll think that's the reality. And despite these failures of these, good Lord, look at Star Wars. Jeez. And still go back to that trough. So the influence of the Twitterverse is probably the only way to explain this. It's bizarre, but there it is. As for Justice League, that the influence of Marvel, our Marvel fans, or the Marvel zombies, as McCloin calls them, the ones that are just anything Marvel is good. And there's always going to be people like that within any fandom of anything. And so that's apparently who he runs up against. His articles. If you ever, of course, I say if you ever read his comment sections, there's a couple of people who just stalk him. And there'll be just several paragraphs of just, about him. And it's like, if you hate the guy, don't come back to the site. But, whatever. That's what happens for poor Mr. McCloin. But nevertheless, when it comes to this, it probably influences his decisions on this, because this is a bit much of a reach, because what really influenced DC or Warner Brothers wanting to copy Marvel or what have you was the money, because these Marvel films just kept making money. Despite some of the ideas that, I agree, I didn't particularly like. You got this scene here. The Guardians of the Galaxy, I'm not a big fan of. I actually like the second one better. But stuff like this, where you got the pivotal end of you're about to defeat the villain, it looks like all's lost, and then dance off, baby. Yeah, you and me. Dance off, baby. Boy. Now, you rest assured, Justice League didn't have Batman dancing off with Steppenwolf. But you gotta wonder, I guess they just forgot, because they probably would have, oh yeah, put that in there. But they almost did, because that's almost how bad it was with that stuff, because it doesn't fit. Now, does it fit with Star-Lord? Yeah, sort of, but at this moment, is it really credible that that's what he would do? It says, well, it distracted the villain. Yeah, I don't believe it would have distracted him. He just would have killed him on the spot. But whatever. Fortunately, it was rather brief, and the movie had its end. The good guys won, but that's the goofiness of Marvel that does take you out of the film. It's like Infinity War and Endgame, the monster hits that they are. But what they did to Thor in both of those films, I mean, Thor goes through this horrific opening. He loses everything. He's at his worst right there at the end. And then he's silly, goofy guy when he hooks up with the Guardians. I just don't buy that he'd be there that quickly. And then, of course, Endgame. Well, yeah. So, what are you gonna do? They made its money, so they say, "Hey, it made money. Let's do it." Well, you can't just slap that on, and you can't do it the way they did with Justice League, where you had a film done pretty much, and then, well, let's make it an entirely different film. No, it's too late to do something like that. They should have canceled the release date, and would have had to shoot another film. They certainly spent the amount of money to shoot another film, but yeah. So I think the profits of Marvel was more the driving force. Twitterverse has its influence. There's no denying that. But that Marvel fans ruined Justice League, no, Warner Brothers ruined it. I understand that this is an explanation for what influenced them in their decision, but I think the profitability of MCU is what won the day for them overall. Obviously, the decision from the get-go to do the shared universe with DC characters, well, yeah, that's because of the success of Marvel. That's why they did that. So already, yeah, that's an influence there. But again, it was the money that Marvel was already making at the time that does that. So they went in their own direction, and the DC films had a darker tone to them. And they just decided, well, that doesn't work, which is odd because in that they released their DC Universe TV shows and or streaming shows, rather. And the Titans, right off the bat, you got Robin smashing some guy's face into broken glass and stuff like that. I mean, so were they really upset with Dark? No, they just were sort of scatterbrained about this and were mystifying the shared universe aspect, which is always a mistake. And I don't know, Batman versus Superman is actually a good example of Warner Brothers interference. All of a sudden you just got to make this happen and do in one film what Marvel had done with several films in, 4 years at that time or something like that. You can't do it. I like Batman versus Superman for the aspects that it achieves. It's still a flawed film. The director's cut is much better than the theatrical one, which is awful. But still, there's flaws in there. I didn't like the direction of Lex Luthor and stuff like that. But does Zack Snyder deserve the punishment that he receives for it? No, he does not. And he certainly doesn't deserve it for Justice League, because they took it away from him. And in a lot of ways, he was forced into this storyline, and he was doing the work, trying to make it work for them. And they pulled the rug out from under him. It's really, really terrible. But back to the point of the article, it's a bit, it works for Aliva's point that it's a factor in this, but overall, to put a headline that you Marvel fans ruined, and of course that's because the ongoing battle he has with these people, and he sticks that out there, and well, what do we have here? You know, you know? Yeah. so, so that's, you know, that's what that is. But the more disturbing things or trends and whatnot is the reports about the problems of the screen test. These are rumors, but rumors are rumors, and everybody reports on them. Sometimes they're true, sometimes they're not, but it's always stipulated it's a rumor. So there you go. It doesn't invalidate someone's site or a writer or what have you. They're saying, look, it's a rumor. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. That's the whole point of the word rumor. That Wonder Woman 1984, the screen test for the original version of the film was pretty good. Now the one that they've changed it to, not so great. This is concerning Wonder Woman. I think was still their best as far as the DCEU goes. I know Joker is the monster hit, but Joker is its own thing, one-shot deal. And monster hit in the sense that it's the most profitable comic book movie. Yeah, no, Infinity War. No, Joker was on the cheap. So when it makes $1 billion, that's a big deal for a cheap movie to do. And it's extremely dark. It's the darkest they've ever produced. So yeah, enough with the dark being bad. But Wonder Woman for the DCEU was the best they've done. I know Aquaman was the most profitable of those, but story-wise, because it's very simple, and Aquaman shares that too. That it's just, and you can say, well, that's a Marvel movie, yeah. There again, for me, the flaws of Aquaman is the goofiness. It almost takes you out of the film, which you do not want to do in any film. And but basically, both that and Wonder Woman, they're just very, very simple superhero adventure movies. And a lot of the success of Marvel, that's what they were, and that's the lesson. They're getting away from that. With some of the tones they're talking about with some of these films, it doesn't sound good, but hopefully they'll right the ship on that one. But that's the lesson for if Warner was going to learn anything, is that Shazam didn't do that well. He says, well, it was presented as a goofy coming in, but for me, I liked Shazam. I thought it was pretty good. The ending fizzles and goes pretty bad. But a lot of the goofiness and humor was tended to work for that one. Following Joker, boy, that huge success, we're going to get Birds of Prey, which wants to be Deadpool. Oh, God. And again, following the Ghostbusters template of messaging, it doesn't look good. And there are the leaks and rumors. Again, rumors doesn't sound good either. Imagine if they had adapted Mad Love, and you got Margot Robbie, and you had adapted that, and you followed Joker with Mad Love. Holy crap, that would have been amazing. But I'm afraid that's not going to happen. And yet again, another massive missed opportunity for DC, and that's really the sad part about it. But anyway, fans on Twitter and whatnot, certainly an aspect in this of influencing Warner Bros. But ultimately, Marvel was successful. That's what influenced them, and they were foolish and panicky over that they could just simply slap some what they thought Marvel was about onto a Justice League Frankenstein movie, and surprise, it didn't work. So that's more of what happened there. He throws in about Martin Scorsese criticizing Marvel movies and all that. Okay. Zack Snyder, they're popcorn flicks. Well, you could say that about Zack Snyder's films too. So I don't know. But in the end, yes, release the Snyder Cut. I really want to see that thing. And hopefully that will happen. And there you go. All right. Thank you for watching and listening. Say, why not like and subscribe, and check out that link description below. That'll take you to my many stores that have plenty of goodies for you.